Absolute Sword Sense. By Hanjun Liulia. Chapter 73. Southern Heavenly Swordsman's Disciple. Part 1. Southern Heavenly. Oh my. His disciple? I felt a bit stunned at their intense reactions. I knew he had a larger-than-life reputation, but this reaction was too much, and to believe the man had vanished over 15 years ago. He was truly a swordsman who was worthy of being called a legend. Is he this good? This is only a natural reaction. Iron Sword made a coughing sound. This was something to be proud of. This was the first time I had ever seen my father, who was always angry and strict, open his mouth wide with shock. No way. It cannot be. So Young Hyun didn't like me claiming that I had a good master and began to deny it. He didn't want to believe it. I glanced at my sister. She had always worn a careful expression, but right now she was looking at me with shocked eyes. Now she looked her age, all innocent. "Ah, really? You are the disciple of Ho Jong-dae?" asked Cho Young-un. His face, which had been full of doubt and suspicion, changed. The voice of Iron Sword resounded in my head. "This reminds me." What? Humans seem to age a lot, which makes their faces hard to recognize the longer it has been. Have you met him? Right. This warrior in front of you was helped by my former master in the north of Yunnan 20 years back. Is it real? Oh. This was a piece of unexpected luck. I didn't think this man would have such a good relationship with Southern Heavenly Swordsman. Even if this man was called the founder of Mount Hyang sect, he couldn't have been anything like this 20 years back. I bowed to Cho Jong-un and said, "I heard a lot of stories about the great warrior from my teacher. It is an honor to meet you like this. Is this true? What? Is this person really the one or not?" The confused, stiff, unsure image of him vanished, and now he was looking at me with twinkling eyes like he admired me. "He often mentioned that he established a good relationship with you in Yunnan on the north side 20 years back, and he praised you to be a warrior who will brighten up the world in the future." That is. At my words, Cho Jong-un scratched his head, feeling a bit shy. I didn't think he would like it this much. And he asked, "Did such a great warrior speak of me?" So was he the type to feel weak to praise? No. This was because the Southern Heavenly Sword had spoken about him, and then someone came over. The woman in the white robe, Cho Il-hai, looked young and pretty. "Sayang. Sammy. He is alive," Cho Jong-un said to her, feeling thrilled. It felt strange to listen to it. I did hear that Southern Heavenly Swordsman was a role model for a lot of people, but I didn't think that even young people would respect him so much. This little disciple is his disciple. Cho Il-hai looked quite shocked. So one who greets the Mount Hyang's female warrior. At my words, she too greeted me back by knowing I was a bit flustered about all of this, and she actually was quite beautiful. What is this? Treat us comfortably. If you are the disciple of that great man, we could be of the same level now, so there is no need to be this formal. What did this mean? We are of the same level? My former master had an acquaintance with their teacher, a member named Ho Shim-hang. So the disciple of their sect called my former master a mentor. Wait. Ho Shim-hang was the sect leader now. I see. Actually, if that was true, at their time a lot of people must have been close to my teacher and are all probably elders and sect leaders by now. The sects were known to be more sensitive to such relationships than the forces of evils. Chuck. Cho Jong-un, who was moved, also took a bow to me and apologized. I apologize. I got too excited for nothing, and I said that you were using evil arts without even listening to you. I was horrible to you. He looked like he was beating himself up inside. This man had more honest feelings than I thought. No. Senior. Do not call me senior. We called your teacher mentor, our teachers called him their Sayang, so how can we be above you? Call me Sayang comfortably. At Cho Jong-un's words, our surroundings turned noisy. One of the men, known to be one of the rising pillars of Mount Hyang, was treating someone with this much friendliness? They envied this. Even I wanted to burst into a chuckle, but I had to manage this situation properly. I spoke with a look of shock. How can I do that to Senior? If you put it like that, then what about my position? He winked at me and said, So Saji, do not be too burdened with all that. Even Cho Il Hai called me Saji. And I carefully responded to their words, is it really fine if I call you like that? Didn't we say it was fine? Looking at Cho Jong-un, I smiled and said, I understand. Sayang. Ha 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 ha. What a happy day. Hearing my words, he laughed out real happy like. He was the kind to hide his true feelings a lot and shy away from meeting people, so I didn't think that he had such a side to him. He seemed to be really glad to be able to get into contact with the disciple of the Southern Heavenly Swordsman. And how can this chance be missed? I am glad the misunderstanding got resolved with the help of Sayang. If not for you, I would have been tagged as the villain who mastered evil arts. How could such a stigma be placed onto the successor of the Southern Heavenly Swordsman? At his words, I turned my head and looked at So Yun Hyun, who was not sure what he had to do. Because of my words, now he turned into a man who tried to put dirt on the name of the Southern Heavenly Swordsman. It isn't. Enough. Something stopped him. It was So Akian. He came close. After it got revealed that I was the disciple of a strong person, he seemed to have complicated thoughts running through his mind. And that was good enough. He is the man who kicked me out of the house and family without even treating me like a human. In a way, the abandoned child was now back with gold around him, so would he like this? Seeing his face only made me angry. If only he had taken responsibility for the treatment of my mother, things would have been different. I don't know what his place in this world was, but he was surely disqualified to be the head of a family. Being angry wasn't a good thing, especially if I wanted to achieve my goals. At the sight of her approaching, the eyes of all three of us turned to look. Knock. The voice spoke after a low knock. Young master. I am a servant of the Peony Pavilion. I am here to deliver the invitation of the madam. Peony Pavilion? Asked Sima Young, a bit puzzled. I didn't know that this would be the first place to move. What is the Peony Pavilion? You heard it. It is the Madam Peony Pavilion. The residence of the wife of the Lord, the actual wife. And if it weren't for the news of what I did, it would be a place that I had no relation to, and no urge to form one with. Because she had been through a lot. The mother of my two brothers was calling for me. The red peony flowers filled the garden. The flowers didn't bloom except for this time of the year, and they were in full bloom now. Seeing these flowers made me feel disgusted. It was like seeing his wife, and I wanted to burn them down. As long as the servants were keeping an eye on me, I could do nothing. Why are they doing this? The rumors must have spread. 1 hour was enough time for rumors to spread, and in the Peony Pavilion where the wives were kept, skilled people were usually placed. Right, but they are all just second and third-rate warriors. This way. Following the servant she sent me, I entered the pavilion. Just entering the pavilion made me feel disgusted. Why was I called? DRR. The main room of the pavilion opened, and a middle-aged beautiful woman was sitting in front of an antique table. That thin-eyed woman was the madam. First rate. I knew she had learned martial arts, but when I felt her, it felt a bit lacking. Why is her face so white? Her nose looked too prominent as she smeared white powder to hide her wrinkles. Shoo. I bowed lightly. I could be called rude, but I didn't want to be polite to her. I couldn't forget the humiliation that my mother suffered from her. You are here. You people can leave. Yes. Madam. At the gentle words, the two women who had guided me retreated. What was the point of having them here? She walked up to me as if she had made a huge decision, and I couldn't figure out why she was doing this. Thud. Then she suddenly knelt on the ground, making me frown at the unexpected behavior. Why are you doing this? She looked up at me at the question and said, I heard it. That you are following the teachings of the Southern Heavenly Swordsman. I congratulate you. Huh? Was she kneeling to celebrate? I could already guess what her intentions were. And she said to me in a serious voice, I know we do not get along so well. I will not deny it. What do you want to say? I will speak out then. If you wish, I can get down on my knees and apologize a dozen times, maybe 100 times too. The proud woman was willing to apologize? I remember how much she hated me, and I remembered how she kept a cloth to wipe off the hands which touched me. And she said, so, please do not covet the position of young Hyun. Ah. She was so cliché. Right. Whether she was bad or not, all the mothers have the same heart. She called me to protect her son's position. Is that why I was called? To my cold voice, she spoke in a pleading voice, if you want to, I can give you the means so that you can eat and play with for the rest of your life. And we can even help the family you want. Just don't covet the position of my son. It seems like she was determined to convince me in any way possible. It seemed like the position of a disciple of the Southern Heavenly Swordsman was great. Seeing her go this low and beg told me that she was feeling a sense of crisis. Sigh. A sigh came out. The attitude had changed so easily. It is a sight that I would have never even dreamed about. How can the one who kept breaking me down kneel down? But I drew the line. Sorry. I will pretend like I didn't hear that. And I turned around to get out of her room. But then she got up and rushed to the door. Do not do this. I want to say the same to you. At my words, she bit her lips and then said, tell me what you want. I will listen to anything. Give me anything I want. I stopped and told her, you mean it? Yes. Her face brightened as if she found a string of hope, and I said, then, can you bring me my mother's memorial tablet and place it in the family and bow to her every 3 days for 10 years? Her expression went stiff. Of course, she hated this. Trying to tell her to recognize my mother, whom she desperately tried to ignore, and asking her to bow for 10 years was something her pride would not allow. She frowned. Really, you will not covet my son's place if I do that? Truly expected from maternal love. Wouldn't it be great if she could give a little of this kindness to my mother? In the end, this only excited me, so I smiled at her. And I quietly went close to her ear and said, would you do it? You bitch. Her face turned red. Why you? How dare you? As she was getting angry, I told her. 12 years back, when I was here, your servant gave me medicine. Upon hearing those words, her expression turned pale. Why? Did you think I didn't know? Chapter 74. Southern Heavenly Swordsman's Disciple. Part 2. 12 years Agaria D. New chapters at novelhall.com. That memory was still vivid in my mind. The servant who had passed me the medicine. When I was just 8 years old, I didn't have a strong enough constitution to handle raw medicine. Even if the effects were reduced, in order for me to consume some, it had to be refined. But after taking the medication from the servant, I fell victim to medicinal poisoning. The mistress had asked her servants to find the culprit, but the case ended without any results, all because this servant had somehow vanished into thin air. What are you talking about? Shocked, her face quickly paled. Who hadn't known that the servant was from the Peony Pavilion? Everyone knew who the culprit was, even her husband, the Lord. Did you think I would forget? She was shocked at my cold voice and tried to make excuses. I think you misunderstood something, but that was. The servant was from the Peony Pavilion and used a medicine that was too raw on the third son of this family. Do you think some ordinary person could do that? Don't come near me. She began to step back. Me expressing my anger must have given her a sense of intimidation. But it didn't matter. Are you afraid? That wasn't me. You are disgusting till the end. Trying to get out of what she did was horrible enough. She does all such kinds of things for the sake of her son, and now she acts like a sacrificing mother. I took a step forward. Do not come closer. She began to wave her palms, telling me to not approach and trying to block my advance. If she had reflected on what she did and apologized to me that day, things would have been better. After all, one was only human. You don't want me to covet your son's place? That is quite funny. If I was weak or had nothing to do with the Southern Heavenly Swordsman, I wouldn't have been treated like this. She would have beaten me and kicked me out again like in the past. As she stepped back, biting her lip, she said, "Do you think you can become the representative of the family if you threaten me?" Was she finally revealing her true colors? Right, pretending to be afraid doesn't suit you. And I told her, "Do whatever you want. Whether you tell the Lord or not." What? Instead, I will also let everyone know. Everyone know? Let everyone know what kind of woman is hiding behind the name of the So family. I wonder what the warriors and families of Murim would say if they found out a grown woman tried to hurt a kid who couldn't even defend himself. Her expression stiffened at my words. She must have thought that I would get angry and do something which she could use against me, but I was not that stupid. I am warning you. If you understand what I am saying, do not look for me for such useless reasons. Finally, I was about to leave the room when she grabbed my clothes. Wait. Pack. I coldly pushed her away but then PSS. I glanced up as some powder fell down from the ceiling. Hiding. The servants were sent out, but a hidden presence was inside the room. Perhaps her own personal escort. The person who was hiding their presence until now must have felt disturbed and let their presence leak out. And I spoke to the one hiding above, "I do not intend to harm your master, so you can come out." Madame looked shocked. She must have thought that I wouldn't have noticed. Well, I was done, so I could finally head back now. Thud. The floor shook when someone jumped down. At my words, the two of them looked shocked. As if they could feel that the issue was being resolved, they looked at me with a bit of emotion. And I said to them with a smile, "Is what you thought I would say? Pack. Huh." As soon as I finished it, I pushed them to the side and then kicked the escort in her chin quack. She fell to the ground as she got hit with my internal chi. Confused, she tried to get back up, but I quickly touched her blood points. Madame looked a bit shocked. What are you doing? The friendship between you and the escort seems nice, but it isn't something you should be bragging about in front of the victim. You. The bottom line is that you knew about it, right? My words made her speechless. Such a funny woman. She knew who had done it but decided to close her eyes to the truth. How could such a beautiful friendship be grounded in such evil? I couldn't hear the escort move as I sealed her blood point. Fine. I believe you. Then you need to pay for it. I put my hand on the escort's stomach, making her eyes widen. Madame tried to pull me off, but it was too late. Pang. Yum. I could see the blood vessels bulge up and her eyes shut in pain. I had just destroyed her dantian. Well, she was the one who had just admitted to the crimes committed against me, so she had to pay the right price. You dirty trash. Madame couldn't hide her anger and her true colors were revealed. It is good that you know to take care of your own people. There were 2 guests from the Mount Hyang sect here, so everyone would want these private matters to go smoothly. I pulled something out of my pocket. They were 2 small beads. I forced open the mouth of the escort and placed a pill in, and then I covered her nose so that she was forced to swallow. You. What have you done? I threw the other one at Madame, who accidentally caught it, and I said, "Have this." What? Eat it? Poison pill. At my words, she panicked, not knowing what to do. In the first place, there wasn't anyone who could take the role of representing warrior of the So family. And when there is the best solution, there is also the second best and the worst one too. Why, you are crazy. Are you telling a person to eat poison pills? You should eat it. What? If not, I am about to take this one to the Lord and say that I found the culprit to the past issue. That is nice. At the same time, there are a lot of guests right now. At my words, she began to contemplate. If that were the case, she knew what would happen. She hesitated as she held the pill to her lip. Don't you know what will happen? You are someone trying to take the top place in the world and plunge your own home into chaos? I smiled at her and said, then I will be quite happy. At my words, she trembled as if a chill had run down her spine. I feel really happy now. For giving me a reason to use the worst thing I had prepared. Chapter 75. Southern Heavenly Swordsman's Disciple. Part 3. Walking down the hallway of the Peony Pavilion, I felt refreshed. I had 2 papers in my hands, detailing what the 2 women had done to me, written by their own hands. This wasn't enough, so I even made sure they used their seals. I feel like you are becoming crazier and crazier like that old man, muttered Short Sword. This was the right level of evil. Could I ever believe that vicious woman just because she knelt down? She could always go out and say that I had threatened her to write it down. Well, if they were prepared to die, they could still do that even now. I don't think so. Don't you think so? Unexpectedly, the madam and her escort were supposed friends, and their attachment to each other was surely strong enough that they would hide information for the sake of the other. If this wasn't true, the escort would be sacrificed so madam could flip the stone saying that the escort was innocent, and that wouldn't work well for me. So, I told them that if either of them cheated they wouldn't be given an antidote for the poison they had taken, and if one of them cheated the escort would die for sure. When I see things like this, I feel like people are rather surprising? Should I say more emotional than I thought? I don't think they are acting very rationally. This is why humans are imperfect beings. Right, my former master had said that once. Right. Iron Sword and Short Sword were right. If humans acted completely rationally, then there would be no conflicts. But humans were more emotional than rational, and so they would always be considered imperfect. Of course, that applies to me too. There was a peaceful way, where they both were forgiven, yet I had not taken that path. Read new chapters at novelhall.com because seeing them suffer made me feel good. Is this called true revenge? Biting people like that is toxic. Coming down, I laughed at how foolish those women were. Because of their pride, she kept all the low-level people away from the pavilion except for her escort. Now no one would know what had happened inside that room. And I walked out with calmness when I felt the servants notice me. Hee. They are all still here. Are you going to wait until the banquet? I was going to do that, but I changed my mind. After all, they touched me first, so why do I need to wait? Then what will you do? Everyone in the family was probably using their heads to the max trying to figure out a solution to who could represent them. Had it not been for the guests who had come, the head of the family would have already summoned an emergency meeting. No, everyone would have already come up with a solution too. This is good. At this point, I need to make my move. So I headed to the hall. Sima Young and Cho Songwon were following me as we headed to the inner hall of the manor. In the inner hall, there was a place for the heads to gather for meetings. They are right behind. Sima Young told me. When we suddenly moved out, the warriors, escorts, and servants quickly followed us. They asked us for a reason, but we didn't bother responding. Leave them alone. No matter where we went in the manor, we were already being watched. Whisper. In the garden of the inner hall, there were aides waiting for the head to arrive. There were just 8 people, but all 8 of them belonged to the Ikyang So family. This meant that they were also waiting for the meeting inside to adjourn. Those who recognized me continued to stare. As I approached ignoring them, the 8 aides stopped me. Please stop, young master. Why are you blocking my path? I actually know the reason. I could not be let in because the discussion inside was about who could represent the family in the tournament, other than me, of course. But they looked a bit shocked as I questioned. In the past, they would have told me to get out, but now they could not. And one of them told me, right now, there is a meeting over a family-related issue, so no one can. Who do you mean? Hearing my question, the man went silent. The head of the family should be there. One of the 2 step-siblings I had was the only one who could say such things. If the head of the family said it, then fine. Ah. Young master. However, one of the heads of halls and a vassal to the family is trying to get away for the rude words he said to the third son of the Lord with an apology. What do you? Apologize by being polite first. With those words, I began to release my chi. When one reaches a certain point, they could give a sense of intimidation by the pressure they exuded naturally when they released their chi. Young Munsuk's face turned pale. Quack. Will he keep his pride? At that time, Jin Kihyun got up. What do you want to do now? Does the disciple of the famous Southern Heavenly Swordsman want to take revenge for the past things? He was using the name of my teacher to make me stop. And Young Munsuk mouthed his thanks. Sima Young, who was behind me, said, Since when is it an act of personal revenge to point out the rudeness and mistakes of a vassal of a family? The hierarchy of this family is seriously messed up. At first glance, it seemed like she said it for me, but it was a voice she wanted everyone to know. And what she said was right, and this made Jin Kihyun angry. How dare someone not of this family enter into the family affairs? How could young master bring in such a person into an important place where the matters of family are? Flinch. He suddenly stopped what he was saying at the energy which rose from Sima Young. Her eyes screamed, I will kill you. Ah. Just as expected. She was already asking for my permission to kill them, and I shook my head. Even now, she looked annoyed at my decision. Oh, they kicked a beehive. Short Sword seemed to be very excited. To some extent, I could understand her being angry for my sake, but she could not act how she wanted here. So I pretended to stop her. Saji. Calm down. Saji? Jin Kihyun looked shocked. If she was a Saji, then she had to be a disciple of that great man too. It felt all too flustering for him. It seems like the head of a hall was displeased with me bringing in my Saji. Jin Kihyun's expression changed at my words. Should we call it an attitude change? What are you saying, young master? You can bring them. Not knowing how valuable guests they were, I acted rudely. Please forgive me with a generous heart. Oh. He is fast. Short Sword continued to hate everyone in my family, and it seemed like Iron Sword joined in the lampooning. It is just because they are scared. At that time, Ha Jang Jian said, I think the meeting should be held when the Lord arrives. We can leave now and come back later. They tried to leave in hurry, but would I let them? I gave the order without even looking back, close the door. Yes. Cho Songwon was the first to go and close it. Then they stayed near the door like a gatekeeper. At this, the face of the hall heads looked shocked. Head of troops, Ha Jang Jian said. What do you think you are doing? The room was filled with tension. This was nice. Since the door was blocked, they were feeling scared. If we don't do this, it will seem like we were unable to have a proper conversation. There seemed to be other intentions from young master. Shoo. The man put his hand around the waist where his sword was. Maybe they noticed it, the others too were ready. The air turned heavy, and it was then, I have a good suggestion. Suggestion? They all frowned at my sudden words, and I spoke to their puzzled faces with a smile. I will give you a chance to change sides. Chapter 76. Southern Heavenly Swordsman's Disciple. Part 4. I will give you a chance to change sides. The expression of the heads of the house changed at my words. Such an offer was such an unexpected out for them. Considering my relationship with my own family, the supposed grabbing of power wouldn't be smooth, but since I had offered my hand, their thoughts must have slightly changed. Will they actually take it? Short Sword asked. It was hard to guess what I was thinking. Ha Jang Jian, the head of the troops, who had his hands on the sword, opened his mouth. Does the young master know what he is talking about? I am sure I said it right. What kind of behavior does the person who inherits the blood of the great family of Ikyang so do? It was funny that he was talking about dignity now. I didn't really know that he cared about what I did. Ah. You made such a disrespectful remark that doesn't suit the status of a vassal of this family. But you did. Was it all right for you to say that? How about just taking my side? Speak out openly if you want. If I had to turn around and say there is no better word than the true expression of selfishness that men like Jin Ki-hyun or Yang Mun-suk kid. I hope you do not mean that you want us to support your bid to be the representative of the family in the tournament. I nodded my head at the words of Ha Jin-jaeun. If it is the representative position, there is no reason to come to us. You can take this up with the Lord. As expected, the final decision maker was the Lord of the family. They could voice their opinions, but at the end of the day, everything was moved by the Lord's will. At that time, Yang Mun-suk spoke. No, are you talking about the seat of the successor? I smiled at the question. Yang Mun-suk, Jin Ki-hyuk, and Gam Woo-moon were unable to hold their expressions. Looking at this, it was clear that these men were definitely pushing the children of the official wife. On the other hand, the face of Mok San-young was different. They see you. Wasn't this on purpose? Of course, just because some of them were good to me, didn't mean that they could be trusted. They could be viewed as neutral. In their minds, they must already be thinking over the proposal I had made. Would the descendant of the Southern Heavenly Swordsman function well as the successor? Or was So Young-hyun more suitable? As the atmosphere turned strange, Ha Jang-jaeun said, "The successor has already been decided, so are you trying to mess with the workings of the family?" A sharp man. He managed to realize my innermost feelings. The seat of a successor wasn't given but earned. If the current successor's skills are insufficient, isn't it something we can reconsider? The second hall head, Jin Ki-hyun, rushed in. It is a no. Didn't the Lord already tell you? The eldest young master is known to be a mastermind. I know that if more than half of the vassals raise an objection, even the Lord will have to reconsider his decision, right? At those words, Jin Ki-hyun went silent. I was a member of this family too, and I understood how the family works. If 5 people, or more than half of the heads of house, raise an objection, then the Lord would have to reconsider the topic of succession. Just then, Yang Mun-suk mentioned reading new chapters at novelhall.com. The Lord has to think about the relationship with the Zhou family too. He couldn't speak out to me, so he decided to appeal to the other vassals. How scared must he be to bring up the family of the madam? Hearing you say those words, it seems like the Zhou family is taking the relationship with me too lightly. The Zhou family was definitely a prestigious sect. However, was that title higher than the Southern Heavenly Swordsman whose name resounded over the entirety of the Central Plains? Yang Mun-suk looked shocked. I did not mean it like that. Ah, is that so? I was concerned that the heads of the 2 families were ignoring my teacher. Well, I am glad. Yang Mun-suk's expression was distorted by my words. There were a lot of people who tried to use their heads to outthink people, to twist their words against them. Even the Murim Alliance was no stranger to this either. And I was a spy for around 8 years, and even I had to use my head to take advantage of situations. Ha Jang-jaeun said to me, "What all happened to you in this 1 year's worth of time? What do you mean by that?" He looked puzzled at my appearance, which had once been slumped and subservient. Actually, my former self would probably have been equally amazed. Just a year ago, I couldn't even raise my head in front of them, but now I was leading them by the nose. I was outmaneuvering the experienced vassals of the family. It was something to welcome, as the young master has grown up to be a disciple of Southern Heavenly Swordsman. But I cannot understand why you are causing this riot. What are you planning? The reason he reacted like this was simple. Because I was looking into their eyes and making them tremble, and this should be a first for them. In the past, they only spoke how they wanted to, and would ignore my whole experience, but not anymore, and I said, I apologize, I was rude in front of the head. And I looked behind and said, I thought a few minutes could be given, but let's wait and see. At my words, Ha Jang-jaeun frowned and looked back. Not just him, everyone expressed their doubts. They were trying to find out who had sent me their support through voice transmission. Chuck. And I bowed to them and said, The Whipyeong-jo family was known for their bladed combat skills. These three families, the Jo family of the Madam, the Ikangu family, and my own, were known to be the warrior families representing the Gangseosong area. And I remember from the past that one of the children looked at Yong at a feast and asked for her, and the marriage happened later. Ugh. She marries him? No. I remember Yong saying no to the marriage as she liked a leader of the Murim Alliance Phoenix troops. And she didn't get married because she had an affair with him. Even though Yong was angry, the guy, Jo Sang-nam, spoke. How is it that we don't have a relationship between us? We will be married. I do not know about you, but I don't. Can you stop? At that time, Sima Young grabbed Yong's hand and interlocked their hands. Like this. Sima Young smiled. Was her good-looking man face because of the mask? Yong smiled. At this, Jo Sang-nam looked shocked. Are you throwing away the position of being my wife for this one? This one? He went from speaking about marriage to talking about throwing away the position of wife. This guy looked to be a lost cause. I was trying to accept you as a wife due to the request of the madam, but all because of that parasitic odor. Slap. Before he could even finish, Sima Young slapped him. Huh. Did you just slap me? Why? Upset that a parasite like me slapped you? I kind of lost control because of your cheap words. You. Slap. Quack. Jo Sang-nam turned his head. Sima Young scorned him. You are so slow. You bastard, you must really want to die. As if the anger was rising high, Jo Sang-nam tried to draw his blade, but I shouted, if you pull the blade out, I will consider you a threat to my sister and my Saji. The guy turned his head and his thick eyelids looked at me. I think I understood why Sima Young slapped him. Huh. You trash of Yulong County. Judging from his reaction, he must have heard of me. Actually, as soon as the Lord arrived, he went to receive the other guests, so he shouldn't have heard too. Well, it didn't matter. Jo Sang-nam shook his head. You and your parasitic Saji. And he went silent. And I figured out the reason as I looked at So Akian coming back. El Lord So. The guy got flustered and took his hand off his blade. He seemed terrified that the Lord was looking angry. He is staring so terrifyingly. As Short Sword said, the guy was actually staring at me. It looked like I had done something. As he came over, Jo Sang-nam was spoken to. Young Lord Jo. Yes. There is going to be a feast, so please don't do this here and have ample rest. Why yes. He was a lucky guy who decided to walk away. If the Lord hadn't intervened, he would have been humiliated here. When Jo Sang-nam left, So Akian looked at me, follow me. Yong, Sima Young, and Jo Sungwon looked worried, but I told them to go and rest. This moment of time had come sooner than I thought. There was no need to wait until the feast. The place where the Lord brought me to was the training room dedicated for him alone, and he sent all his guards out as he locked the door behind them. It was a situation where there were just the two of us. What was he going to do? But as soon as So Akian locked the door, he pulled out his sword from its sheath. SRNG. A sword with a blue pattern. It was the blue decree sword that symbolized the family. I didn't think he would pull this. Is this what you want to say? In response to my question, So Akian pointed his sword. From now on, if you tell me a lie, the sword of mine will not forgive you. It seems like you planned for this. The sword over talks. Disappointing, but then came unexpected words. You became a member of the blood sect?